In today's LEGO City update, I'm going to connect the town with the rest of the city on the right-hand side, and also what I'm starting with right now is create a railway crossing in the center. First of all, what I have to do is modify the existing modules and straighten out the road, which now leads directly towards the train tracks. Having that done, I have now prepared the next piece of road, which I'm simply connecting as a sort of puzzle piece to the already existing road. I now had this ugly gap remaining and decided to simply place a car on top of it. Sometimes the easiest solution, like placing a car on top of something that doesn't really look good in order to hide it, are the best. In the meantime, I also have started preparing the next few modules in between the town and the city, because that was my goal, to connect these two parts. As always, I know it's a bit repetitive at the moment, but in the beginning of building a LEGO city, this is simply what you have to do, and therefore I've quickly skipped over that part. Now we can finally continue building the train tracks. First of all, when they lead across the street, I now have to lower the train tracks before and after the road, because otherwise the gap beneath the train track would have been a bit too high, and therefore I have to get rid of the studs, thus use flat tiles, and now you'll get this in just a second why I've done that. For the rest of the train tracks, I'm always using studs because I think they look a bit better. And now we have this problem right here. As soon as we drive towards the train tracks, they are of course a bit too high at the moment and therefore have to be connected to the road. Because I'm building at a 45-degree angle at the moment, I now have to artificially create studs at a 45-degree angle. Therefore, I'm connecting these plates right there to the train tracks, and having now prepared the base of the crossing, I can simply place on curved slopes in order to create this transition from the road onto the train crossing itself. I know normal railway crossings are a bit flatter and more integrated into the roads, but in my case I've decided not to do that because I wanted to have the train track going on one single height in order to have more reliable train tracks and prevent trains from derailing when they run for several hours constantly. Therefore, slopes are a bit dangerous in this case. Now on to the next part, and this is so satisfying and also so lucky I can't even tell you. You can see the studs of the sideways built-in brick modifieds right there. They fit perfectly in between the train tracks and therefore allowed me to connect the railway crossing with the road beneath. This was by far the luckiest part. No way I could have planned that, and therefore sometimes you also have to be a bit lucky. In the meantime, I've also started building the sleepers, and now I've no idea what the term is for these railroad crossing signs right there. I've prepared. If you want to, you can comment that down below, because I found so many different terms when Googling it. On the other side of the train tracks, where I wanted to continue the sleepers, I was a bit lucky because I already had prepared some finished train tracks from my old LEGO City layout. Therefore, this was saving me quite a lot of time. And also now we can finally start with a bit of vegetation. This is always important for me personally to see and get an idea of how everything is going to connect. And also you can see the difference simply a bit of vegetation makes around the train crossing right here. Now, when we continue along the train tracks, we can see that we have quite a big section missing right there where the tunnel is, because none of the train tracks are connected at the moment, and therefore I connected the section we built in today's update with the section we built last update. I know I was always talking about not using the tight LEGO radii, but in this case behind the mountain I had to do it. Also, last video I was talking about this, maybe adding a switch and now having a second train track leading towards the wall where we can punch a hole through. I'll talk about this more at the end of the video. Then I've quickly finished off this straight section in the back of my city, and now we finally have the first section of the train tracks completed. And now you can probably also see what I'm doing right here. I'm continuing with more vegetation because I simply need to mix that in with more exciting and more fun things like connecting the train tracks in the back of the city. And now we can from time to time focus on vegetation once again, which is of course important, I know that. Then I've prepared the next 3 modules, which I've designed for the front section right here. And now we can continue the 45-degree angle train track leading towards the railway station. I know this curve right there is a bit close to the platform. I'll surely need to change that in future updates. For the second train track, I've also mentioned that last video that I need to get that a bit closer to the train track I've just continued building a few seconds ago. And having laid out everything, I once again had to modify what was already existing from my old LEGO City layout. And after that, I was able to continue building the foundation for the train tracks, on which I'm then going to add the ballast for details. Probably once again even more annoying work than adding all the vegetation, but it is simply so important in order to get rid of all the studs beneath the train tracks. As you know, I hate empty studs, and this is also what I then once again had to do next. adding all the ballast in between the sleepers. For the sleepers themselves, I still had a few more tiles remaining. I now have to definitely order more, but it simply looks so much better getting rid of all the studs. And now, after having finished the vegetation, I think it's time to take a look at not only the future planning of the railway system, but also everything else that has happened so far. Regarding the road back there leading towards the wall, I'm currently planning on adding a small tunnel back there, letting the road disappear, and then we can simply sort of respawn the road on the other side of the city as soon as we start building this part. And then we simply have gained so much space in the middle without any roads blocking it. When it comes to the train tracks in the middle right there, some of you wanted me to connect this part with the rest of the train tracks. What I could theoretically now do is take this part I've prepared right there, and then, let me do this right now, add this curve towards this part of the train tracks. However, this would now theoretically short circuit the entire thing, because this is one giant circle leading back to the exact same train track right there. There are some tricks how the entire thing wouldn't short circuit, which would be a little bit complicated, but what I'm getting to is this would theoretically work, although on the other hand, once again, steal quite a lot of space in the middle right there. And then on the other side of the mountain back here, I've also briefly mentioned this last video, I could now add a switch, having another train track going towards the wall, punching a hole through there, and then simply have the opportunity to store several trains behind the wall without taking away too much space in the city right here. What I'm not too sure about at the moment is if I want to add a second platform in the middle in between these two train tracks right there for this train station. Then obviously I have to modify this platform, probably take away this entire section because of the new curve right here, and then on the other side extend the entire thing. Probably more than I'm going to take away because the platform is quite small at the moment, and then this would be a great opportunity to extend it. I was initially a bit worried about everything looking a bit stretched out and weird because this part of the city was originally designed to be 2 base plates closer to the rest of the city, as you might remember from my old layout. And now today's update was a bit weird because I had to connect 2 parts, which I've never done before, honestly. Normally I'm simply continuing to build in one direction, but now having the train tracks laid out and also partly built in, I'm now quite confident that I'm going to be able to connect everything quite nicely together. And also this space I've won in the middle probably is good to give the entire area a bit more room and space in between, which honestly is a bit more realistic. Oh yeah, and one last thing I forgot to mention, this area right there, which is empty at the moment, will of course simply be an extension of this pattern I've created back there with the tiling leading towards the road and then connecting this village with the road and thus the rest of the city. So with that being said, that's it for this video. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you again in the next one.